Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Remember, we have a short week this week, kids. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're taking Thursday and Friday off to spend with our families. We hope you will as well. Well, not spend it with our families because that'd be weird, but spend it with your own families. It's time you reach out and, for God's sakes, put down your equipment. And if we don't put shows up, there's no reason for you to go on the internet. There's no reason at all. So now just go and be with your family and have fun. Go back to that atmosphere. We do have True Crime Tuesday, though, that is taking place today, and it's a heck of a show. Mark Shaw joins us, the reporter who knew too much, the mysterious death of What's My Line TV star and media icon Dorothy Kilgallen, and this has a direct tie to the JFK assassination. Fascinating story. Remember, subscribe today. Get in while you can, because tomorrow, the 22nd, my birthday, I'm drawing 3 names, and you may be one of the lucky winners of a 1-year paid subscription to True Crime Tuesday. So go sign up right now. It's only $5 a month for the best in true crime talk radio. Don't hesitate. No more waiting. Go sign up. You do it at darknessradio.com. Click on the True Crime Tuesday banner, and you can subscribe right now. And everybody who subscribes all the way through till tomorrow will automatically be put in for the drawing to win. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get started with today's show on the paranormal. Today on Beyond the Darkness, we're seeing ghosts with our guest, Mary Elizabeth Brazil. Mary, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Dave.
I'm going to ask what is probably a very strange question, but I bet half of our audience doesn't know. Do they celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK as well?
It's acknowledged, but it's not really celebrated, although I have worked with some Americans who have sort of brought in treats and that kind of thing. So we acknowledge the day, but it's not really celebrated.
Okay, so it's kind of like 4th of July, right? You guys acknowledge it, but still a little bitter over the whole thing, I guess.
Perhaps.
All right. Mary, thank you for joining us and sharing your story. At what age did your life start to become intertwined with the supernatural?
Around about the age of 12. So, as I say in the book, in primary school, so when I was about 7 years old, so quite young, I realised that I could actually change my dreams. I don't know if I was aware of it, but looking back, I know that I could do this. But the first time that I actually saw a ghost that's clear in my memory is I was about 12. So quite young.
And what was that experience like, your very first encounter?
It was absolutely terrifying, Dave. I won't lie to you. I wasn't prepared for it at all. The first ghost that I saw, who was the soldier ghost, who I talk about in the book, I'd had interaction. I knew this must have been him. I hadn't seen him, but he'd tried to make contact with me. He was sitting on the end of my bed. I couldn't see him, but the bed was dipping as if someone was sitting on it. And my name had been called a few times, and I'd been prodded in the back. And I couldn't see anyone. So when I did see him, when he eventually materialised, I realised that must have been this visitor who I was not seeing. And then I saw him. It was very, very disturbing. I was young, and I found the whole experience quite terrifying. When
you said he would kind of poke you in the back, was it forceful? Was it more like somebody just poking you with their finger, trying to tease you and have a little fun?
Yeah, exactly. Not forceful. Just almost like a gentle prodding, as if he wanted to get my attention. So I didn't feel threatened, but I was terrified because I knew this was not what's presumed as natural. I knew that there wasn't a finger there, yet I could feel it going through my back. So, but it wasn't a threatening way, but it made me feel quite threatened.
When you look back at it now, do you think it was really that you were afraid? Was it really scary, or was it more just shocking to you?
I think it was a bit of both. I was still at quite an early age, but I knew that what I'd seen, not everybody would have seen. So it was shocking, but I was scared because I knew that it would be classed as unnatural, and it was very hard for me to be able to tell someone what I'd seen. And I remember telling my sisters about it, and they kind of just laughed it off. And that actually suited me because then I could sort of pretend that I hadn't seen it.
Oh, sure. Right, because if they're making fun of you, if they're not corroborating your story, then maybe you are just making a mistake. It was a dream, or you were mistaken. Yeah, I can see that. So you weren't feeling isolated or alone in these experiences.
When I was younger, I definitely felt more isolated about it. I found it hard to talk about it, but the first time that I saw that ghost, the soldier ghost, when I did confide, and it wasn't so much making fun, but they sort of wrote it off and just said, oh, that's probably nothing. And then I decided to sort of keep it to myself. And then I started feeling quite isolated, because when I started seeing things, I decided from that moment onwards that I wouldn't really share with anyone, because I was frightened of being mocked, or, that I wouldn't be taken seriously. So then I felt a bit isolated.
What about your parents? How would they react?
Oh, I was brought up, Dave, and I put it in the book. It's an Irish Catholic household,
Okay.
And there's a lot of supernatural chit chat that goes on in Irish Catholic households. But I didn't really confide in my parents at all. My mum was too busy. And my dad, to be honest, my dad's seen loads of spirits. He's now passed over. He's been gone for 25 years now. But he used to tell us tales when he used to come back of spirits that he'd seen. And you'd imagine that in that sort of environment where he was talking about it, that I should have felt comfortable to say, hey, I've seen something too. But even that wasn't enough for me to really confide in people.
So your dad was open about this?
Oh, yeah. My dad used to say he used to travel the country. He used to build cold stores, so like big refrigerators for companies. And he'd stay in all these different hotels, and he used to come back and say that one night he'd wake up and there'd be like a man hanging above him with his feet almost in my dad's face. He
was just open about that in front of the kids. That wasn't something that he thought might be bad ideas to tell his children?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think the Irish have got a really dark sense of humour as well, Dave. So,
sure.
He felt fine talking about it. And lots of different family members have had paranormal experiences. So that's the only bit, when I look back, I think, well, why didn't you confide more in what you were seeing? Because it wasn't as if I was living in a closed-off household. But it might be because I was a teenage girl as well. We tend to be more secretive with our feelings.
Can you answer me this? I love European culture and the UK. I've now had a chance to visit Scotland, Ireland, and England twice this past year. And it seems that for locations so close in proximity, the belief systems and patterns are kind of all over. England seems very open to the whole concept of ghosts and accepting of it. Whereas when we were in Ireland, I actually found the opposite. They were less, as a matter of fact, they kind of, our tour guide and some of the people would kind of roll their eyes and scoff at the concept of ghosts. And I said, is that because it's not so extraordinary to you? It's always been a part of your culture? And they're like, no, we just don't really buy into it much. But then they believe in the wee folk and the fairies and things like that. What can you explain to me about that culture? What is it like there, and especially growing up in that Irish kind of environment? You said your dad was very open about this, but what is it like for the paranormal, and how do people discuss it there?
Well, because I was born in England, Dave, I can only, it's sort of like by proxy. So my parents came over in the 50s to England, so I was brought up in an English household, really. I was brought up in England, even though I had Irish parents. And it's weird you saying that, because all of my family members, aunts and uncles, it could be because of Catholicism, because it's almost like a sin to talk about ghosts, because it sort of goes against, I guess, their beliefs. So maybe that's why it's not as talked about there. But in my family, certainly it was talked about. They talked about spirits. And maybe, what part of Ireland were you in? Was it Northern Ireland or Southern?
Well, we traveled all over, all over Ireland. We were all over. I don't think we got too deep into the northern aspects, but we spent a lot of time throughout Ireland, Scotland, and England on our trips.
Yeah. In my experience, I find that English people are more open to talking about ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird you're saying that, because the Irish that I have come across are always quite willing to talk about ghost stories. So
yeah, and that's what we did find. I mean, it was funny because, right, they would kind of roll their eyes at us when we would talk about these things, but then they would also almost invariably have some kind of story to relate to us.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't believe in it," and then they'll tell me the most fascinating ghost story
right.
that they've had.
And you're like, "Well, wait a minute, I thought you don't believe in there." Well, but but that's different, isn't it? Strange.
Yeah, they'll tell me something absolutely amazing, and then they go, "But it's all nonsense." And I don't know if it's the Catholicism kicking in, because it sort of does go against the Bible. I don't know what it is, but for them to say they don't believe after saying such stories, you kind of wonder what's going on.
I don't understand the whole concept of because they're religious not believing. I mean, the Bible, as we've said a million times on the show, the Bible's got ghosts in it. It's got what sounds like aliens. You've got giants. You've got angels that have fallen from heaven, had sex with humans, and created a whole new race of creatures. So to me, it just seems really funny that, but we'll draw the line in the sand and say this is evil or this is bad because, of this, that, or the other. It just seems like, what do you mean? This is part of the Bible. Their stories are all about this. Yeah,
I mean, Jesus came back from the dead.
Yeah.
So it's literally, you could see him almost as a ghost. And in fact,
he came back from the dead, and the people didn't even recognize him when he kind of reappeared to them. So I often wondered, was he like a walk-in? Did he die and his spirit went into another person who addressed the apostles? And that's why. And then once they were able to engage him, then they recognized him. It's just, I don't know. I love that kind of stuff. I just think it's fascinating. And
it is. The Bible's an amazing book.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I wish more people would be open about the possibilities and, talking about these aspects of it. Let's, I want to get back into your story, of course, and dealing with this. So you started having these experiences at a young age. Now, did you find out, did your siblings have these experiences but kept them to themselves?
Some have had some experiences. And some haven't. So it's a mixed bag, the experiences of brothers and sisters. Some have had really amazing experiences, and I'm actually thinking of doing a second book on their experiences. But some have had none. So it's quite strange. Some are completely, they won't accept it at all. They don't even want to talk about this side of life. And some have seen some amazing things. So it's half and half. There's 5 brothers and 3 sisters. And they're all very different at how they approach the supernatural. And I'd say half of them just scoff at it. And then the other half with me and have either seen things or are open to it. So some of the stories are amazing that they've seen, some of the stuff they've seen.
Did any of them confide in you that they also saw this soldier, this guy?
No. Well, actually, it's really weird because one of my brothers who doesn't believe, around the same time that I saw that soldier ghost, he says he had an action with what he believes was a soldier who picked up a bat in the room that he was sleeping in and whacked him with this bat. So
wow, physically attacked him with an item. Bat. Wow. So the spirit appeared, and I hate saying wow, but I do that all the time talking to guests like you because that's just, you're like, what is going on? So this ethereal being picked up a physical item to strike your brother with.
It's the only way he can explain what happened. So I said, how can you not believe? When you've had an experience like that. But I guess it's easier not to believe because if you actually are brave enough to believe, it's quite a hard thing to deal with. I've always found it quite hard to deal with this side of life. And maybe by believing it makes it harder, whereas if you could just pretend it's not happening, you can just carry on with life.
Yeah, that's a good possibility. All right, if you just kind of blend it out and move on. I think there is when you start to become exposed to the paranormal at an early age, like you were and I have been and many of our listeners, though, there's this kind of weird fascination with death and the other side then, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's obviously trying to get our attention. Do you ever feel like you started spending too much time focused on what comes next?
I've tried not to, but you can't help. But when you see the things that I was seeing, you can't help but start thinking about what happens after we die, because no one really knows. It's one of those questions, it's one of those debates where, you know, people throw theories out, but until you actually die, you don't really know. I believe we're made up of energy. I don't think we can die. I think our body takes on a different form when we die, maybe. That's what we're seeing. I say in the book, I say seeing ghosts. I'm using that term because people are familiar with it, but I'm not sure what I'm seeing really. I don't know if it's that energy that can't die within us. It's hard to, you know, describe, but I do think you end up thinking more about what happens after life than what you're living life, because you see so many things. Of course, it's going to get you questioning about that side of existence or non-existence.
Well, you had this experience with this soldier character. Now, would he also appear in dream form, or was it just always in the physical world?
Only in the physical, and I actually saw him once, and then that was it. It was almost like he'd spent quite a few months almost wooing me, so by trying to get my attention, and sort of sitting on the bed and poking me, and then when he eventually manifested and just sort of went to me, yes, I don't know what that yes was. I say in the book, I don't know if he was saying yes because I'd seen him and he could now leave, or if he was saying yes at something that I wasn't privy to. Maybe he'd shot someone or he'd escaped, or I'm not sure. But after I'd seen him, that was the only time I saw him. I never saw him again.
When you would have these experiences and you would have these things, or this being making itself known in your room, once you finally physically saw it, talk to me about what that experience was like the first time.
It was almost like watching a film of yourself watching, if that makes sense. It was almost like I wasn't experiencing that. It was like me watching myself experience it. It was the most weirdest thing ever, because as I was staring at him, at first I thought he was someone dressed up. And then I realised, because when I see ghosts, they tend to be quite solidified. I can sort of make out their outlines and all. They're quite clear. But then just in this next moment, you see that they're see-through. So at first I thought it was someone dressed up, and then I could see the door behind him through his body, and I realised, I was like, oh, this isn't right. He's actually transparent. It was a really weird, it was, I just can't describe it to this day how I felt, but it was almost like it was almost out of my body. It was almost like I was seeing myself seeing him. It's the only way to describe it. And I was just, for the moment, I was rooted to the spot, just staring at him. And then I just ran in shock.
But there was no conversation.
No, there's no conversation. He just sort of punched the air and he said yes. And I remember just sort of looking at him and I just couldn't find the words. I just ran, because I knew the minute I could see the door through his body, I thought, what am I seeing here? I knew it was wrong. Whatever I was seeing wasn't meant to be there. And I suppose maybe I would have dealt with it better if I was older. I don't know. But because I was young, I just couldn't deal with it, so I just ran off.
Well, that's understandable. That's kind of a chilling experience for the first time, right?
Definitely, yeah. It was too much. So, yeah, so that's, I did, as it went on, I mean, I've never got quite used to it. But as the years roll by and the more you see, you get more used to seeing them. And a few I've spoken to. But it's weird because you sort of communicate with them without speaking to them, if that makes sense. So I'm asking them questions and they're responding, but neither of us are talking. It's hard to explain.
We're seeing ghosts today here on Beyond the Darkness. Mary Elizabeth Brazil, our guest, her book, Seeing Ghosts. We have a link up for that. As a matter of fact, if you go to darknessradio.com and click on our Killer Deals link, or if you're using the phone version, you can go into darknessradio.com. You'll see the little, 3 lines for a pull down. You pull that down, click on the Killer Deals link. It'll take you directly to our Amazon page, where we've hand-selected all of the great products, and you get to see all of the books that we feature on the show. So make sure you go order it and get a copy for yourself through our special Killer Deals link. And holidays are coming. Whatever you purchase, make sure you purchase through that link. And every order that you make, a small percentage of that sales goes a long way to helping to support this show. And always remember to support our advertisers. All right, that's intriguing. You've got a lot going on with what you're doing in this kind of awakening for you, and it's a bit fearful at first. But let's start to talk a little bit about how this manifestations and the paranormal begins. Or I shouldn't say begins, but continues to grow in your life. What were the next relatable experiences you had that were some of the most memorable?
Probably after the soldier ghost. I didn't have anything for a while. And then there's this whole period, I'd say from about the age of 20, where it was terrible. I was seeing, on average, about 9 spirits a day. And they did a really weird thing. They used to shuffle along the walls. So I had a whole, I'd say, a decade of seeing spirits that used to shuffle along the walls, and they used to have their head down, so you wouldn't look at me to begin with. It was almost like sheepish. So they'd shuffle along the walls, and then as they got to a point where they were almost in front of me, they'd sort of look up. And they didn't speak, but they would plead with me. They'd sort of hold out their hands and almost beg for help. So that was happening quite a lot. I'd say from about the birth of I'd say from about 1992 to 97, it was quite a period of activity. Too much for me, too many spirits. And I hadn't asked to see them, and I wasn't sure what they wanted.
Well, now, when you say that you're seeing these beings and they're shuffling along your walls, obviously this doesn't sound like a residual style haunting. This sounds like some kind of intelligent haunting, as though it knows you're there, it knows you're aware it's there, and it's trying to keep its face down or away from you. Or do you believe that they were just a loop in time playing over from something else that might have happened there?
That's actually, do you know, I've never thought about that, Dave, like, as in they did have their heads down. It was almost like a sheepish. So you're right with that respect. They must have been aware of me to sort of almost want to hide from me. And then there would just be this stage where they'd look up and start begging for help. And it was really traumatic. I found it really hard to deal with.
Okay, explain to me, begging for help. How would they do it? Were they speaking vocally, or were you hearing it in your head?
Yeah, no speaking at all or hearing in the head. It was literally just them holding out their arms, their hands, and their eyes were just full of, please help me. So I knew they were distressed and I knew they needed help, but there was no conversation. It was the most weirdest thing. And this went on for quite a period of time.
What would you do if you knew that these beings need help? And you obviously you sound very compassionate and loving. So how would you deal with that? Was that something, would you do prayer? Was that kind of out of your concept of what to do? Would you, try to approach them, light a candle? What was your first inclination?
It was so hard to know what to do. I could see they needed help, but I didn't know why they were coming to me. Because I had no training, I didn't want to see spirits, I didn't see myself as a medium, so I just felt like it was a waste of energy because I love helping people, but I didn't know what I could do with these things that I was seeing. So I actually went to see a medium. I've got a very love-hate relationship with mediums, and I went to see a medium because I was desperate. And she said to me, and I thought it was quite an interesting theory, she said that in a past life that I was quite a powerful person with a gift for helping people. And she thought that these were people seeing me as that person and not as who I am in this life. She was trying to explain to me why I was seeing these things, and that was the only thing she could come up with. She said she hadn't heard of hauntings like this, where they just stuck to the wall. And actually, I only communicated with one once, the guy that I mentioned in the book, the old man, who came a few times, actually. The rest were just once. They were just passing through. But this is the guy from that period that I remember the most, an old man. And I just said to him, what do you want? In the end, I just didn't know what these things wanted. And I got nothing back.
Now, you said you have a love-hate relationship with mediums. Can you explain that to us a little more?
I think so. I've had some negative experiences with mediums, and I don't always take them at face value. So I've seen techniques like fishing happening, where they start asking questions, trying to get information out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And but I have seen 2 really good mediums in my life that restore my faith in mediums. So I've only been to a spiritual church twice in my life, and in both places I had experiences which I mentioned in the book. But overall, I don't know, it's weird, I shouldn't say love or hate. I don't hate anybody. I have a trust issue with mediums. That would be the better, I think, thing to say.
And just, I want our listeners to understand as well, I'll bring this point up to you that maybe will give you a little clarity and understanding. There are no hard and fast rules when it comes to mediums. I know when we started the show, we were against the whole idea of front-loading a medium. And the idea that, and we had mediums that would tell us, I don't want you to tell me anything but yes or no. Because I want, evidential is important to me, and I want these messages to come through. And then somebody came in and shifted our whole paradigm. Chip Coffey, who has been on Paranormal State and Psychic Kids and has appeared on many different shows, Chip comes in and he says, I don't have time to screw around. Who do you want to communicate with? Just tell me their name, their age, and I'll take it from there. So he said it's like a giant swing. I can sit here and I can go through all of these spirits that may be coming into the room that want to communicate with you, but if I can't get to the one person you care about or really want to hear from most, it's going to eat up your time. Which I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I said, well, let's put this to the test. And then he would do that, and then he would go, once they'd say, yeah, I want to talk to my dead girlfriend, Amanda. He would go, okay, bam, 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 and he'd just start giving them information, evidential, information. And on occasion, they'll ask questions, but it's to try sometimes to understand the imagery that they're getting as well. And I do get that, so I don't want people to think automatically that if they're asking questions, it's always like you were referring to as fishing. This is still right. It's still kind of an interesting job because they're trying to figure out the information that to them makes no sense, right? If all of a sudden they're seeing a purple hippopotamus with pink polka dots, they might think, "What the hell is this?" I don't even want to say that, but you know what? To you, that could be the holy beep moment, right? Because that's what you were waiting to hear, some kind of corroboration that this is grandpa or grandma or somebody that you love. So that's, I just wanted to let you know that, so maybe your love-hate relationship will ease up a bit with mediums as you realize, everybody does have their own unique technique. And what it really comes down to in the end, I think, and if you're opposed to it, let me know, is just what is the overall deal of the message. Once, even if you gave them some bits of information, were they able to give you pieces that they shouldn't have gotten from the information you gave them? Right? Yeah. So that's always part of the aspect that intrigues me. But they didn't know, the mediums really couldn't tell. I mean, they guessed at why maybe these spirits were around you because you were powerful in a past life, but they couldn't say it wasn't like they were seeking you out because, you're a relation or you are the, you hold the key to some major thing for them. It was just maybe they knew that you could see them, so they were attracted to you because they needed help or wanted help.
Yeah, that's what another medium said, that I was very open, and that that's why these spirits were coming to me. Because the most frustrating thing is, and it must be frustrating for them, because I've read so much about spirits, because I've experienced them and I want to understand. And apparently they use a lot of energy to manifest themselves. And I always feel such a letdown that they've manifested themselves before me, and I just don't know what to do. I don't understand why they choose me, because I don't really want that side of life, but I kind of look at them and think, why me?
Well, right, but we're all built with talents and abilities, right? I've got the gift of gab, Picasso, he had the gift of artistry, and you've got Edgar Allan Poe, who had the gift of words and writing, so you've got these things. So sometimes, even though it's not necessarily something we're looking for or hoping for, if it's a gift that's given to you, have you utilized that now to try to do things to help these spirits cross over or get some rest?
No, still not yet. Do you know?
Mary's like, I got better things to do.
No, not at all. It's just because even though I've sort of got used to them, I'm still so scared, and I am cross with myself because the one of the most terrifying incidents I had, and definitely I put in the book, was the hanging boy who who, when I went to spiritual church, I saw this boy who had obviously hung himself. He showed me he'd done it, and I'm convinced that his mother was sitting behind me, crying. And I'm really cross that I didn't turn round to her and say, did you have a son of about 16 who hung himself? Every day I kick myself because I'm convinced that that was her boy. The more I think about it, the more I think that she was there sitting directly behind me, and he got my attention so that I could tell her that he was okay, he was happy. But I didn't utilise it. And I have seen I've seen one faith healer who's incredible. And he set me up once and he said, look, you really need to, he said, you're a white witch. He says, you've got a lot of powers. And he said, you really need to start tapping into them because you could help so many people and you're making yourself sick by not using them, that you need to start using them. And I do wrestle a lot with it, Dave, but I think this book's the beginning of that journey because I've spent a lot of time writing fiction, and a lot of my friends and family who know about these stories, the ones that I confide in and more felt comfortable with, have said, why don't you put these stories down? And in myself, I've been sitting there going, why am I trying to create fiction when what I've seen is so much more amazing than what I could create? And I think this was like a purging exercise.
Well, you write the fiction. You write the fiction because in fiction you can write something absurd and terrifying or silly, and it's a work of fiction. And nobody judges you for that. But when you talk about reality and things that you're experiencing, that's when we all get nervous, right? I mean, I've been at this now 13 years doing this radio show, 12 years going into our 13th year. And I still I worry about how people are going to perceive me if I mention what I do and what I talk about. So I understand that want and desire to hide behind it. That makes complete sense. We need to take a break. We will come back. We'll continue seeing ghosts. We'll hear about some of the other ghosts hanging around our guest, Mary Elizabeth Brazil, and, of course, we want to hear about the demon in the attic, and we'll do that when we return to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Hey, welcome back to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Remember, it's True Crime Tuesday as well. You can go subscribe right now and never miss another minute of the best in true crime talk radio. You love what you hear on Darkness Radio, Beyond the Darkness, and you've been a fan of our show for many years. I'm telling you, if you haven't tried it now, try it. Our true crime podcast every week, and you can listen to it any day of the week. You just go subscribe at darknessradio.com, click on the True Crime Tuesday banner, or we've made it even easier for you. The link for it is right here on today's podcast. So, however you're listening to us, there'll be a link. Click it, and it'll take you in, and you can subscribe. $5 a month. That's nothing, folks. $5 measly a month. You're probably going to give that away in tips at the bar tonight anyway. Why not subscribe to the best in true crime talk radio? $5 a month. You can go month to month, and when you're signed up, you get access to all of our past archived shows as well. So please go check that out for yourself and subscribe, and do it before tomorrow, because that'll automatically enter you into the drawing for a 1-year paid subscription to True Crime Tuesday. The reporter who knew too much, the mysterious death of What's My Line TV star and media icon Dorothy Kilgallen. That's this week's show. Next week's show, we're going to talk about the game show killer. Yeah, that's right. We're going to follow it up back-to-back stories. And this one tomorrow is definitely, or today actually, is fascinating because it does tie in with the JFK conspiracy, but it's not the JFK conspiracy you're used to. So make sure you tune in and check that out at darknessradio.com. Click on the True Crime Tuesday banner and sign up. All right, seeing ghosts, that's what we're doing right now. Mary Elizabeth Brazil, our guest. All right, Mary. Let's hear about some of your, I want to hear some of your creepiest stories that has happened to you throughout your life. And you've been experiencing this for quite a while now. Let me start off this way. Let's go a little bit more benign. Do you ever have fun encounters with ghosts? Silly things that happen?
I do. The one that I always laugh about, and I've actually put into the book, is the bum pinching ghost.
Oh, really?
So, it's in an art gallery in Greenwich, part of the National Maritime Museum, and I was in the art gallery walking around with a then boyfriend, and my bum kept being pinched. And I kept saying to him, "Oh, look, stop it. This is ridiculous. You know, we're in a nice place. You know, there's time and place. You know, this isn't it." And he kept denying it. He's going, "I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You know, it's not me." And I was going, "Well, who else is it? It's only me and you." And then years later, I actually ended up working in that place, and I wasn't with him anymore. And I went into, it's the Queen Anne building, and I went in there, and as I was walking through, I heard a guide talking to a group of people, and she said, "Oh, this is the landing that's known for the bum pinching ghost." And I just stopped in my tracks. I went, "No way," like in my head. And I sort of lingered, and she said, "Yeah, it goes about pinching the bottoms of the female women as they look at the portraits on display." I felt so bad, Dave, because obviously I wasn't with that man anymore, so I couldn't apologise and say, "Oh, now I know it wasn't you. It was actually this bum-pinching ghost." So I don't know why that ghost would
bum-pinching ghost in a bar. I don't buy it. It's just like my kids trying to tell me the dogs are the one that farted. No, it's you. I know these things. Well, that's kind of funny.
Bad.
Right. Well, it's not all bad. I don't know. Over in America, you get your butt pinched. Everybody's suing everybody over here right now.
Well, yes, they are, aren't they, at the moment?
Yes, they are.
Topic.
Yep. All right. So you've got the bum pinching ghost, and that's got to be a weird violation. What do you think of these people, these celebrities that have come forward admitting that they've had sex with ghosts?
I don't know any. Who's come forward with that?
Bobby Brown.
Really?
Yes. Kesha, Anna Nicole Smith, Lucy Liu, Dan Aykroyd. There's quite a few that have experienced spectral fornication, if you will. So, it's bizarre. It's bizarre,
yeah,
but I guess if you can't love the one you want, love the one you haunt, right?
It seems quite tame now, just getting my bum pinched.
Yeah, exactly. How do your friends react around you? Are they excited that you kind of have these abilities and these kind of activities, or is it just like, "Oh my God, Mary's conversing with the dead again"?
Some love it, and some it really freaks them out. So once again, it's a mixed bag. It's like my family. Some absolutely love it, and some are terrified and don't even want to talk about it. But I think some of them, if you haven't got any experience with that other side of life, that supernatural side, you can almost see it as a movie and you can enjoy it at a distance. But I think it's always harder to embrace it if you're actually living it. So a lot of them don't have supernatural experiences, so they can sort of enjoy. It's like tales, stories. I think it's harder if you're actually experiencing things to enjoy it because you haven't got that safe distance.
That's true. Do you go to places that are known to be haunted to see if anything happens, or do you try to avoid well-known haunted locations?
I try to avoid them, actually, if possible. That's why I don't like the spiritual churches. But sometimes a place will fascinate me, Dave, and I think, don't let the fear stop you from going there. And there's this amazing place in Margate in Kent. It's called the Shell Grotto. If ever you're there, I really recommend you go and see it. And there's definitely something in there. I thought it might have a presence in there because of its history. No one knows why it's built. It's around the Victorian times. And the minute I walked in there, I felt a weird energy. It wasn't evil. It wasn't good. There was just definitely energy in that place. And then as we walked down the stairs, I was with a friend who I actually dedicated the book to because she's been on this journey a lot with me. And we walked into the final chamber, which is where they do seances, obviously. And all of a sudden we could hear heavy breathing. It was just me and her in there. And there was this really distinct heavy breathing on us. And she absolutely panicked. And she was like, "Can we get out? Can we get out?" But part of me, I wanted to stay to try and work out who it was. But I could tell by her expression that she was terrified and wanted to get out. So we left. But I do try to avoid it because when you're seeing so much anyway, it's like, why put yourself in a position where, I don't really want to see things. But some things do intrigue me, and I break the rules and think, no, I want to go to that place and see it.
What are some of the places that you visited that kind of helped you break the rules?
Rule breaker. So it's things, places that I want to go to, like the Jamaica Inn. in Cornwall that's meant to be haunted. And when I was in York, which is another lovely place in the UK that's worth visiting, we went into, it's meant to be the most haunted house in the UK. And I said to my now husband, I said, can we please go in here? Because once you've seen what I do, well, let's see, is it really the most haunted place in the UK? But it was actually quite disappointing, because we even went into the big seance room, and because maybe I was feeling brave and he was next to me, I was almost chanting for ghosts to, come. I was like, come get me now. But
oh, be careful.
Yeah, but nothing actually happened in that place. I didn't overly feel anything, and I think sometimes it's just the right moment. I think this is what I was trying to say in the book, Dave. If ever I try to will it, nothing happens. It's always spontaneous with me. So everything I've seen, heard, felt, it's always spontaneous. If I actually sit and try and call on the spirit or anything like that, nothing happens.
I know, that's just like when your kid starts talking for the first time and you call your parents to let them hear, and then they won't speak.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Kind of, come on, this is your big chance to shine, and they just stare at you blankly. Yeah, it's funny. The supernatural just likes to work on its own time and in its own way. How does your husband respond to all of this? Does he ever get any of the splashback from the paranormal activity?
He's terrified.
Really?
Yes, he doesn't want any. He used to be able to sleep with the light out and all before he met me. And now he's quite a nervous creature. I didn't tell him. I mentioned it in the book. One of the experiences was waking up with what I thought was his arm around me in this house we're in now, but it wasn't. He was in the other room. But I haven't told him that.
So does he? Oh, you haven't told him that one?
I haven't told him that experience. I put it in the book. If he reads it, then he'll know about it.
See, he's got to get to know you a little bit better, I guess, huh?
He's just he doesn't want to entertain it at all. So I try not to talk about it in front of him, because he's genuinely scared about it. And we'll hear noises in this house and he'll just look at me as if to say, this is your fault. He's really scared.
He's a man after my own heart. I like that.
Yeah, he is. He doesn't like it at all. And now and again I do the tarot readings, which I try not to do too much, because I think that's actually asking for interaction, then. So I wouldn't do tarot readings in front of him or anything like that, because, I respect the fact that he doesn't want that side of life. It scares him.
Well, now here
you
are doing
the wrong person to marry.
Right here, yeah, right, exactly. Did you keep that quiet? Was that one of your dirty little skeletons in the closet until you hooked him and got married, and then you're like, oh, by the way, lovey, I can see spirits and they're all around us. How was that first conversation when you had to tell him what's going on in your world? Yeah,
I didn't tell him immediately. I think on the first date he would have run in the opposite direction. So I did wait until we got to know each other a bit better. You start talking about things, and then I said, oh, I should let you know, and sort of just said, I have seen weird things since I was about 12, and I said, I have periods where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden I'll get a rush of activity. But, by then I had him hooked, so.
Nice.
He just has to deal with it.
You and your feminine wiles winning him over and then dropping the bomb on him. How did he respond when you finally told him that? I mean, was he cool about it? Was he like, okay, honey, whatever? Did he think you were full of hooey? What, are you going to talk me through that?
Well, I thought that he'd actually be quite dismissive and just laugh it off, because that's the common reaction when you start talking about this kind of thing. Because I think people like to mock things that they're scared of or that they don't understand. But actually, he looked at me with quite a serious face and was almost like, are you kidding? And I said, oh no, but there's nothing to worry about. I've learned how to shut myself down, and I don't see as many as what I used to. But I thought that he'd actually be sort of just joke and go, what are you talking about? But he actually took it all quite seriously.
Well, that's good, at least. So he's been respectful to you regarding it.
Definitely.
Well, that's good. All right, very good. Well, that makes things a little bit easier. But he wants nothing to do with it. So he wouldn't try for you to call out spirits or want to have you. No?
Oh God, no.
No.
So, and I have had some weird experiences while doing things like tarot reading and all. So, I don't think I'd do it in this house as much as I have in other properties when I wasn't with him.
Well, they say that
I do think.
They say that doing tarot and things like that can actually help bring things towards you. Why are you involving yourself in it if it's something you're trying to get away from?
I know. Once again, it's this fascination thing. Like, it annoys me, Dave, as in I'm fascinated by the tarot. I don't know why, but my younger sister's an amazing tarot reader. And I like collecting tarots and the packs. There's so many amazing. I love the artwork. And it's almost like it starts off as a fascination. And then I started thinking, well, I'm getting haunted anyway. Why don't I read them? So I did a protection thing around me and I started reading them. But I had a really bad experience with a friend who I was reading for, which I put in the book, obviously. Anything that's really had an impact, where I was actually punched in the lip while reading for him. A bad spirit came through while I was reading the tarot for him. And I was aware of an evil man, all of a sudden, a presence. And the next minute, I felt a force on my mouth. And my friend said, your lip has split, it's bleeding. And when I ran to the downstairs bathroom, my lip had split and it was bleeding, had to stem the flow of blood. And I came back in and I said, well, that is it, the tarot reading's over. And I gathered all the cards and I hid them under the couch. And I was so cross with myself that I'd gambled and, it hadn't paid off, that all of a sudden there was this a weird entity in the room, and it actually lingered. It lingered, this spirit, this man, this like evil presence. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. But some people in the house thought they could actually see him, and he was like a black shadow, and he just stood at the bottom of the stairs looking into the living room, and you could just feel the evil. And he lingered for about 2 to 3 weeks in the house, and I was so cross I'd let him in.
So you did open that door up, right? That can be part of it. So what do you do now to protect yourself? And we'll get back into some of these, but have you learned ways to shut down once you're done doing the tarot so that you're not leaving that door open for paranormal ruffians?
So I shut down. I do a chapter on shutting down because part of the book, Dave, it wasn't just about a purging for me. I wanted people to feel like they could read it and relate to it as well, maybe help them. Because it's so hard to admit that you're experiencing things like this. There's a lot of people see it as not just mocking, but they sort of question your mental health and all. So I think a lot of people are quite afraid to talk about it. So I was hoping that this book would help people that might be having similar experiences, which is why I put a chapter in there called Shutting Down. And this medium, who I thought was wonderful, explained to me that if you imagine like a glow around your body, a pink glow all around your body, then join it with a blue glow, so you've got a pink and blue glow around your body, then join it with a gold glow, so you've got a pink, blue and gold glow all going around your body, and then fill your feet, like from the bottom, with solid gold, and let it fill your whole body up until you're solid gold. And she said that would shut me down and sort of protect me from the spirits. And it certainly worked. It worked for about 6 months, and then it started again. I think because sometimes you're such a powerful force for them, I do think that for some reason they're drawn to me. I could shut it down for so long, but only for so long, and then it all started again. But I do use that technique, and it does work.
All right. What are some of the other more chilling? And now that you look back at your first experience, now that's kind of just benign, right? That's nothing.
Yeah.
What are some of the other experiences that you've had? And then let's lead that up to what was going on in your attic and how you were able to determine it was demonic in nature.
Yeah, that was awful. Some of the other ones, like the boy who hung himself, that's probably one that really scares me because he left marks around my throat. So up until that stage, I hadn't really had a physical interaction with a spirit that would left a mark on me. He was so desperate to try and show me how he died that he was squeezing my neck. And I didn't realise until I walked out of the church, and one of the girls that I'd gone to church with said, "What's happened to your neck?" And I realised how red raw it looked. I was very angry that, I'd actually almost been assaulted. So that still leaves me with a chill that an entity, like a spirit, could actually leave a mark on my body. And I was quite cross with him, but I also felt awfully sorry for him because he was so young, and I think he was just so desperate to get his message out that he was okay. But yeah, so I didn't like that experience at all, that I'd actually been I'd actually been assaulted.
Oh,
And,
suck it up. What's a little abuse from a ghost, right?
Especially one, I can still see him now. It's years later. I can still see his eyes. I can still see his hair colour. He was beautiful. And I thought that he'd been strangled, and he was trying to tell me what had happened to him. And in the end, he flew above my head to the front of the spiritual church and showed me hanging himself, just to make it clear that he'd actually took his own life. And then he came back to me and looked at me as if to say, do you understand now? But tell her that I'm happy. And I can still see him many years later, and that is my regret, that I didn't turn around to the woman crying behind me, because I feel sure now that that was his mum, and that I didn't say, did you lose a boy? I can still see him now. So that was quite chilling, that he'd assaulted me, but I can see why he was so desperate to get that message across.
Right, to get that attention and get that final message.
Yeah.
Well,
and then we had we had an awful creature in one of my mum's houses. I tried to describe him in the book, but it's very hard to describe. He was almost shaman-like, and he used to reside in my mum's chair for some reason, and I could see him. My sister thought she could see him, but my mum was actually almost like attacked by him mentally. So it was a really weird time. This creature, I don't know if he was scared of me, but I could see him. And I almost when I was out one night and she called me. I was sitting there, I was playing cards with friends, and I said, my mum is in distress. I felt like she was in trouble. So sorry, I called her and said to her, you okay? And she was crying on the other end of the phone. And she said, can you come home? I'm in the dark. I feel like someone's trying to assault me, kill me. So I knew immediately it was that thing, whatever that thing was in the chair. So I ended the call and I said to my friends, I have to leave. I have to go back to my mum. She's in trouble. And they were shocked that I knew that I'd felt that. But I could feel her fear. And I couldn't get back to that house soon enough. And she was distraught. She was crying. She said there was something in this house trying to get me in the dark. It's the only way she could describe it, that it was on her, trying to get her. Some sort of physical thing, but I knew, I didn't tell her, but in my mind I thought it was that thing, that it resided in her chair for some reason.
Had you gotten the chair secondhand from somebody?
No, not at all.
Just some kind of weird funk spirit just took up residence in that chair.
Yep. And I laugh about it now, but it was terrifying at the time. I actually squared up to this thing. When my mum went to bed afterwards, I settled her down, I just looked at this chair and I just said, he wasn't actually sitting in it at the time, I couldn't see him, but I just said to the chair, I said, I don't mind you messing with me, but don't mess with my mother, because, she can't cope with this side of life. It's not for her. It's not for me. But I can laugh now, but I did. I literally squared up to the place where this creature sat to say, leave her alone, because she was terrified.
And has she learned to kind of adjust to this as well, or is this still really just unnerving to her and she wants, nothing to do with it?
Yeah, this was a long time ago, and she's not in that house anymore. She still gets the weird, odd experience. My mum's another one of those people, and I've got a few brothers like this, that say, oh, no, I don't believe in the supernatural. And then they go, oh, last night I thought someone was in bed with me, and this kind of thing. So she has the odd experience, but I'd say on her behalf, nothing like that night. She really thought she was going to die.
Yeah, that's disturbing when you've got that kind of activity, and that possessive and aggressive type of entity. Yeah. Now, have you seen things that do not look spirity but are more, in keeping with the European versions of supernatural presences, whether it's elementals, wee folk, fairy, whatever it might be? Do you ever run into that, or what you might consider to be alien in nature?
Definitely alien. You say about fairy, that's quite weird, because once I went to Snowdonia in Wales, and we went to this place called Fairy Glen, And the light was amazing. And I didn't see anything at the time, but I was taking lots of pictures, Dave, of the area. And then later on, as you do, after you've been to a place and you start looking through your camera, don't you, or your phone, just seeing what you've taken pictures of, I zoomed in on, I'm convinced I caught a fairy on camera. If I find it, I'll send it to you so you can see it. But it's like a little fairy on camera. Not that I saw any while I was there, but, you know, everyone I show it to is convinced it's a fairy caught on camera. But I have had, definitely, and once again, I put this in the book, anything that I feel is quite prolific, I've put in the book. And I saw, my friend, what we call, like, they're almost like healing lights, light healing beings.
Right.
So they weren't ghosts, definitely not. Immediately I knew, I thought, these aren't people that have died and crossed over. This is something from another dimension. And they were like, almost, they were about, I don't know, nearly 3 feet in height. And they were made up of light. But I can't describe the light. It's like light I've never seen. It was like white light, but absolutely amazing, this light. And they were trying to find a shape, almost. It's the only way to describe it. So it's like a ball of light, but it wasn't a ball. It was like a sort of wavy type thing, and it was almost trying to find a shape. And at the time, I was trying to give her some healing. And it was like they'd come to help, which is why I call them healing light beings, almost. And she really freaked out. She lost it, and I was going to her, don't freak out, because I could tell they were sort of picking up on her fear. And I thought they're actually going to stop, you know, if she doesn't stop freaking out. But she couldn't control the fear, and they sort of left. And I haven't seen them again since. But certainly that is something from another dimension. And she was like, I can't talk about this to anyone. I'll be laughed at, you know, and all the rest of it. And I said, well, I don't care. I said, you know, I've got to a stage now where this wasn't long ago. I mean, this was about, I don't know, 5 years ago, Dave. It wasn't that long ago. And I was at a stage where I'd seen so much that I said, no, I'm definitely, if someone mentions this, I'm going to say, yes, I saw this. This was from another dimension.
I'm fascinated by those kind of experiences because, again, then that really, you start to think you understand what's going on and what you're dealing with, and all of a sudden your paradigm kind of gets upended again, doesn't it? I mean, all of a sudden you realize that what you thought you knew is nowhere near what's actually going on.
Oh, definitely. I don't think we have an idea. I always say that people say things are supernatural. I think we call them supernatural because we don't understand how this world works at all. They're probably natural, but we call them supernatural because we can't explain them away.
Oh, stop your logic, Mary. Stop your logic. I'm with you.
I just think we can never understand this world or this afterworld. You know, there's so much that we don't understand. We don't understand how we really began. So I knew immediately. I thought, these are not of this plane. These are from somewhere else. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them since. And I must say they're the only things that I've tried to call on again because I wasn't frightened of them at all. They weren't ghosts. They were something else. But I haven't been able to call them back at all.
Well, and the part of where we all came from, it's simple, Mary, but you should talk to your parents about it. It's when a man loves a woman...
Indeed.
All right. In closing, I know we've got to get flying here. Talk to me about your attic and what was going on in the attic.
Oh, Dave, do you know, I can't look at an attic door the same since. And when I tell people this, they get chills and they can't look at attic doors the same either. So your listeners, you know, if they like attic doors, stop listening now.
Well, if they like attic doors, they probably have a problem to begin with that's much deeper rooted. But let's...
This is true. Yeah.
All right,
so,
let's go.
I'd moved to this new flat, and so it was the first week, and I was lying on like a pull-out sofa, and from where I was lying, I could see the attic door in the hallway. So I've been there for about a week. All of a sudden, the attic door starts pulling to the side. And I was like, oh no, I'm being burgled. I can't believe it. You know, when you move into a new area, I thought, this is great. I'm about to be burgled. So anyway, it moves to one side, and I'm lying there thinking, what am I going to do? And the next minute, this head pops down, and it's like something that Clive Barker or Stephen King or any horror writer could have created. I've never seen anything like it. It was like a browny red clotted type, blood type head. and it had a cone type thing coming of it. So it's popped its head down and it's looking back and forth, and I'm just lying there staring at it thinking, is this really happening? And then the head went back up. So I was just lying there thinking, okay, I've imagined that, you know. And then the next minute it dropped down. So it's dropped down. It's almost like he scoped the place, this thing. Then he's dropped down and he's standing there and he's looking to the left and he's looking to the right. And I'm thinking, what is this thing? I call it a demon. It was like a mixture of brown and red type matted material. It looked like blood. And it had really long arms with really long nails. And it was just, even now, I'm getting chills thinking about it. And it's just looking to the left and right. And all of a sudden, it must have felt me observing it or him or whatever it was. And he's turned to look at me. And we've locked eyes, and he had the most horrible eyes ever. They were like yellow. They were terrible, terrifying, and huge teeth. And he did this really sadistic grin. And then he ran at me. He ran with a speed I've never seen. And I remember I just sat up in bed. I sat up on this sofa bed, and I just shouted. For some reason, I shouted, Jesus Christ. And it went through me. And I looked behind me. It wasn't behind me. It wasn't anywhere. I don't know if it went through the wall. I don't know where it went, but I've never seen it since, thank God. But it was absolutely terrifying.
Well, you've got that going. You call out on the name of Jesus Christ. You see this thing. It runs through you. Did it leave any residual feeling, fears, anxiety at that moment? Like you could feel part of it left with you?
Yeah, it left fear for a long time, and it actually got me think. I thought, is this from another dimension? Because once again, things like parallel universes, we don't really understand any of that. And I thought, is this a being from another dimension who our paths have just crossed? He doesn't even see me. He's running at something else. Or did he see me and he's running at me? But the most terrifying part of this, Dave, that I didn't put in the book, but which I can tell you now, is that for the longest time, the only way to carry on in life was to pretend that I'd imagined it. I knew I hadn't, but I thought I'm going to have to. The only way to cope is to say I imagined that. And then we were at a family gathering at my mum's house, and my sister-in-law came up to me and said, can I talk to you? I've heard that you've seen some things. So I said, yes, you can talk to me. So she said the other night she woke up, and she said, I felt the need to look, and when I looked down, there was a creature on the bed, so the bed that she was sharing with my brother, and she said, he was pinching your brother, this creature, almost like tormenting him. So she said, I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, he was still there. So I said, well, what did he look like? So she literally described the thing that I'd seen come out of the attic. And she said it was really weird. She felt that he saw her looking, and he turned around and gave her a really sadistic grin, and then he disappeared. So then that gave me even more disturbing sleep, because this was at a stage where I started to believe that maybe I imagined it. I knew I hadn't, but the only way to cope was to imagine I had imagined it.
Right.
And then she said that, and it verified it.
Are you... You know, if you could turn this ability off today and never have it come back again, would you do that? Or do you think you might miss kind of dealing with this type of thing again?
That's such a good question. I've never really thought about that, Dave, to be honest. I've always thought it and not wanted it. But maybe it would be sad if it stopped, because part of me is always hoping that someone will come through who I actually love, who's passed over. Right. So I'm thinking if it was to stop forever, then that would shut out the people that have passed that I would have liked to have seen, like my dad and my uncle, and, you know, these people that have passed over that actually I feel like I would like to see. So that's a really good question, because I've learnt to deal with it better, but I still haven't learnt to deal with it. And also, what people have said to me is you could help people with this. So I think the first stage of this was for me to put it on paper to make it real, and like to purge myself, and then to think about what can I do next, you know, because like you said, if it was to go forever, maybe I'd miss it, or maybe it's not meant to go, and I'm meant to do something with it.
Very well could be. Well, keep us abreast of the situation. Let us know how your story continues to play out. And a life of seeing ghosts. Mary Elizabeth Brazil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Dave, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And I'll tell you what, for listeners out there, and I'll talk to Mary about this off air. If you're interested, I can give you some insight on how you can rid your home of some of these spirits and things, and spirits that seem lost and pleading for help. If you need it, I will have the information in an email form. Just send me an email at dave@darknessradio.com and just say, ghost removal, and I will send you the information, and you can try it. It's based more in the religion I grew up in with Christianity, so I'm just giving you that up front, but instead of putting that out over the air, which seems to irritate a majority of the audience, if you are interested, send it in an email request to me at dave@darknessradio, and I will do my best to get that information off to you and hopefully bring some peace and quiet. And I'll tell you what, even if you're not really that religious in nature, it's not going to cost you anything, and you might want to try it to see if you can help out the spirit world and end some of the scary moments or weirdness in your own home and in your own life. That's it for today. Remember to try out True Crime Tuesday. Subscribe today, because tomorrow we're doing the drawing, and we'd love for you to get the opportunity to win a 1-year paid subscription to True Crime Tuesday. Do that at darknessradio.com. Click on the True Crime Tuesday banner and subscribe now. We'll be back again tomorrow with the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.